The lucky few. Yo, what's going on? It's someone that's no one, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report is coming from Scarecrow off Erowid. When this happened in 2012, the drug used was a synthetic cannabinoid at a dose of 1 hit. The route of administration was through a bowl. Gender, male. Weight, 170 pounds. Age, 17. His prior experience, he has had some prior spice experience, and the setting was outside their school at this park/trail. So this is a pretty wild report, just how casually these teenagers go about smoking this spice, and the effects that happen are, kind of what you would expect from spice. Wide variety of things, very physically discomforting, and a lot of bizarre cognitive effects for the most part. So we haven't done one of these in a while. I think it's real interesting, and I think you guys are going to like it. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. First, a little background. 2 days before, I bought 2 grams of spice from a buddy of mine who always gets stuff a lot stronger than you could ever get at stores. After smoking a few bowls and deciding it was making me depressed, I sold the remainder to another friend the next day at lunch. After, we went into the woods by the park to smoke a little. Now this path was paved and regularly walked on by visitors to the park, so we didn't look too suspicious. The day after that was when it all went to hell. I go to school the next day and come to learn that we have an assembly right after first period. Me and 4 other friends desperately try to call the guy I sold the spice to, and when he doesn't answer his phone, we decide to just drive down to his place and wake him up. About a block down the road, we find him stumbling down the sidewalk after he drank 6 shots of vodka, smoked some weed, and spice. We stop and he jumps in the back of the truck, which took him about 6 minutes to do, and we drive off back to park by the school. We get there and have to help him down the path into the woods, as he wouldn't let us smoke without him. We get down, do a little clearing just off the path, and pack the pipe as full as it would get. I, being the original owner of the stuff, took the first hit. My best bud and his girl decided not to partake in the festivities. After it got back around to me from our circle of 8 people, 3 more ended up joining us at the parking lot. I was already feeling the effects and decided another hit. On my way out, I turned to my sober friend and tell him we better get out of the area as I had a bad feeling about something. Both him and his girl just look at me like I'm stupid. Boy, how right I was. So I walked out of the woods back to my truck alone. Now this is where it gets really interesting. I stumbled to the parking lot where I had originally parked my truck before picking up my drunk friend, and upon not seeing it there and being extremely fucked up at this point, I immediately thought someone had stolen my vehicle. After about 30 seconds of panic, I realized it's in the lot behind me, but I didn't want to look suspicious walking back and forth, so I sat down on a bench and started to watch the hallucinations of dark circles flying in front of me. After 5 minutes of this, 2 of the people that were down there with us walked by and said my drunk friend was down there humping trees and saying, "I want to fuck all of you, except for all of you, except for her." Sober friend's girl, and they were letting him smoke more. I thought as myself, fuck, they're gonna kill his ass. After about 10 more minutes, I start to notice that I'm shaking uncontrollably. This park being right next to the police station and with cops driving by every few minutes, I go to get back in my truck and wait out the rest of the trip. After walking about 6 yards around it, I finally unlock the driver's side door and climb in. I lean the seat back, lock the doors, and try to sleep it off. Somewhere around 5 minutes later, I have the sudden urge to vomit, so I jerk up out of my seat, fumble with the door lock, open the door, and proceeded to projectile vomit onto the asphalt for another 7 minutes. After I was done, I felt immensely better and proceeded to sleep off the remaining 30 minutes of the trip. Waking up, I turn on my radio and realize the time. Shit, the assembly's over and they still haven't come out. I better go get them. So still being a little buzzed, I walk back down the path, and right as I come up to the clearing, I get a bad feeling in my gut telling me not to go down there. I shrug it off as simple drug-induced paranoia and went down anyway. I get down there and shout to them that the assembly's over and they have to come back to class. That's when I saw him, a fucking man in his mid-30s, standing over the entire group who were all sitting. The man then turned around and asked me who I was. I simply stated that I was my sober friend's friend. He responded, telling me that he was an off-duty cop and that I should go back to school. So I said okay and turned a complete 180 and walked back on the path where I passed a uniformed cop and even greeted him. After passing me, he must have smelled the spice smoke on me because he turned around to look at me, and I had to fight the urge to take off running as fast as I could get out of there. But luckily for me, he decided the group of now 4 people with drugs confirmed to be in their possession was more important than the loner, and turned back around heading the opposite direction. I immediately got into my truck and drove off. Right after leaving the parking lot, I passed a police cruiser heading to pick up the group, and me still being slightly high was worried my driving was off. But he just kept going as I let out a sigh of relief and drove to the nearest Walmart to completely sober up before making the 15-minute drive home. I come to find out later that after I left, another mutual friend had walked in on the cops, claiming to be the sober friend's brother. When he got down there, 4 uniformed police officers were now on the scene and told him to get lost. And right before the off-duty cop came down there, one of the guys that was smoking down there with us left and passed him on the path, still blazed out of his mind, and was also ignored. Out of the 2 people that had smoked and were still down there, both were charged with possession of spice, which is illegal in Utah, and the drunk one was charged with underage drinking and paraphernalia as well, as he still had the pipe with a full bowl in his hand when the cops showed up. He was way too out of it to comprehend that shit had hit the fan and that he should have thrown everything into the river first chance he got. He blew a .01 at the station, which, combined with all the drugs he'd been doing, almost killed him. He was unable to stand or speak, but repeatedly denied that he had done anything. The 2 sober friends who had stayed down to trip sit were charged with a truancy and let go after they refused to give any information about who else was down there. Lucky for me. Wow, so this report, man, just absolutely going crazy. And I guess you can call this youthful ignorance. I mean, this group of high schoolers just basically were smoking spice so casually, which either the people involved probably didn't give a fuck or were just unaware of the dangers spice can present, which negative effects are reported here. But before we break down this report more, let's speak about spice itself a little bit. Now, it's hard to pinpoint any specific chemical that may have been ingested in this report. The classic go-to when considering spice is JHWO18, but assuming that was the substance would be misleading. There are many different types of cannabinoids that are put into spice. It may be multiple, it may be only one. Often, you don't know what you're actually smoking because when spice was sold, they weren't necessarily required to include all of that information. And even today, if you're interested in acquiring forms of spice, it's often sold as herbal incense, which none of the ingredients are included, which why would they? That would just make their product pretty much illegal for sale. But many of these spices and blends that were first introduced like a decade ago are banned because the effects of spice differ strongly from cannabis. Now, I would say someone may consider using spice if they, say, have a drug test and, still want to use something similar to weed, or maybe you're just looking to budget some cash. Spice often acts as a full agonist of the cannabinoid receptors, while THC acts as a partial agonist. This opens the door for a lot more effects and also raises the potential as a danger. The effects reported may be similar to weed, but often people will report grogginess, having a headache, feeling too heavy or tired, to feeling like they're seeing things. Hallucinations are a very real possibility, and they seem to vary from psychedelic all the way to pure delirium. An overdose may lead to internal problems such as heart issues or organ damage, or you may end up in some sort of psychosis and feel like you're going crazy. The potential for spice goes in a ton of directions. It is for the most part in a dark market, and there really isn't any regulation for human consumption. They're pretty much research chemicals that have been designed to generate money. But in regards to this report, we see a good amount of adverse effects experienced by Scarecrow, such as not really being too comprehensive of the things going on, him thinking something was wrong, the puking of course, and just his overall ability to handle himself. Lucky is right though, he could have easily ended up being arrested along with his friends, but regardless, the spies seemed to do a fair job of scrambling their brains up. They pretty much just fucked up, and the guys who got charged probably learned a lesson. But let's bring up a comparison. We only have one spice report previously, and that is Proceed with Caution by Washbar, where he took Cloud9 and K2 Summit over a short period of time. We see that he did find some initial recreational effects from taking it, which this group here may have had the same thing happen, but after using it for a few weeks, he noticed the experience began to grow weirder and weirder. He noted hallucinating a boa constrictor and a raccoon that wasn't there. He ended up with tunnel vision, seeing stars, basically a lot more trippy, but not in any desirable way. He did end up quitting, but not without a battle with withdrawals and cravings, which, again, this group may have had individuals facing similar issues. But at the end of the day, spice typically doesn't lead to any good. It is an interesting experience to look at itself, but really if you're just looking for some trippy shit, just trip, or if you want to get high, just stick to bud. But with that, we're going to leave it at there. If you guys want to see more synthetic cannabinoids or any drug at that, let me know below and we'll get to it. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, follow the socials. It's been someone that's no one, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.